Imagine this. You type a paragraph into a web page. Not code, not a timeline editor, not a game engine, just a story. You say, a blue alien quietly holds an ice cream cone. Small movement makes the cone wobble. Strong shaking launches the scoop into the air. And if the shaking continues, the scoop falls onto the floor, and the alien picks it up and eats it anyway. Ha! And seconds later, a wearable character on your wrist comes alive. Notice what happens when I do my shaking. This is not a pre-programmed animation sequence, but it's a living emotional system. And that's what just happened inside TAS Studio. And I think it represents a very important inflection point, not just for TAS, but for conversational software itself. What TAS actually is, TAS stands for Tiny Animated Stage. The original idea was simple. What if a character could live in tiny devices, not just as watch faces, not as apps, but as performers? Characters with emotions and reactions and memory and movement and behavior. Tiny actors living inside a constrained physical world. Tiny batteries, tiny processors, tiny displays, real sensors, real physics, real interruptions. A theatrical runtime of wearables. The old way was traditionally creating something like this. It's brutal. You would hand automate state machines where sensor thresholds build animation transitions, tune timing constraints manually, and define behavior graphs. You'd be writing endless if-then statements. Something like, if the accelerometer is greater than 1.6, then play animation X. It's so mechanical. It's technical and rigid. And an experimentation becomes really slow. You stop exploring ideas because implementation becomes expensive. So what just happened? Something changed inside TAS Studio. I typed a natural language scenario. I described emotional behavior, not implementation. Behavior, and Studio generated this. Now here's the important part. The TAS runtime that's in this device doesn't even fully support this structure yet. Yet Studio hallucinated forward into the future runtime format. And that's a breakthrough. Hallucinating forward. Normally we'd think of hallucination as a flaw, but in creative systems, hallucination can become architectural, explorational. TAS Studio wasn't merely generating data. It was predicting the shape of the runtime that should exist. It inferred state machines, sensor routing, transitions, actor systems, layered behavior, timing rules, symbolic events. My goodness, emotional logic. It invented abstractions that the runtime itself hasn't fully implemented yet. And that's extraordinary. Because now the AI is no longer just assisting implementation. It's participating in system design. The big shift is this. This changes the role of software development. We're no longer programming animations directly. We are describing emotional physics, and that's the leap. The human involved here describes intention and emotion and dramatic rules and symbolic behavior, and then the runtime interprets those ideas into movement and interaction. The watch becomes an interpreter of emotional stage directions. That's fundamentally different from traditional software development. And you might be wondering, well, why does this matter? It's because most software today, it still operates like machinery. You have input, logic, and output. But characters are different. Characters exist in mood and anticipation and hesitation, reaction, timing, emotional continuity. And conversational systems are uniquely good at describing those things, which means conversational software may evolve into behavior authoring, emotional simulation, symbolic runtime generation, not just chat, not just coding assistance, but systems generate living behavioral worlds. Why TAS is important? Well, TAS is small enough to experiment quickly. That's the secret. There's a huge AAA engine which would bury this insight under complexity. But the tiny wearable, the tiny animated alien, the little ice cream cone, that's enough because the constraints force clarity. And now we can rapidly test emotional models and runtime abstractions, symbolic behavior systems, conversational authoring. Yeah, AI-generated stage direction in real hardware on real wrists in the physical world. I see it as the future today. One alien, one cone, one behavior graph. Tomorrow, well, you'll have multiple characters. You'll have memory. You'll have relationships. You'll have environmental awareness. You'll have long-term emotional continuity, not apps, not assistants, characters, living tiny performers, and conversational systems may become the way we direct them. This is why I think this moment matters. TAS Studio didn't just generate code, it imagined the runtime ahead of us. It hallucinated forward into the future architecture. And for the first time, I could feel the boundary between, say, storytelling, runtime systems, and conversational AI starting to disappear. That's where TAS is going. And honestly, I think this is only the beginning.